All right, the White House briefing, about 15 minutes away. A couple of big issues, no doubt, will be coming up. Of course, the Brett Kavanaugh situation, an FBI probe that could wrap up today, and this New York Times story, and the president and business dealings that go back to, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, you name it. Big topics I want to discuss with Karl Rove. Karl, let's first talk about the judge and whether he's going to make it. Obviously, it's down to just a few key senators. Handicap it for me.
Well, right now we have 3 Republicans who have been pressing for the FBI investigation. The resolution of it could bring them into the Kavanaugh camp. And then we have 2 Democrat senators, North Dakota's Heidi Heitkamp and Joe Manchin of West Virginia, who have yet to opine on this and are waiting. What's interesting, there's a poll out from Harvard-Harris conducted by Mark Penn for Harvard University. After the hearing last week, it was 37% of voters favored confirming Brett Kavanaugh, 44% were opposed. But then if you said the FBI is going to look into these, what if there's no corroboration by witnesses, then it turns into a 60-40 confirmation support, overwhelming Republicans, big majority among independents, and even 40% of Democrats saying if there's no corroborating witnesses, he ought to be confirmed.
That's very, very interesting. Now, of course, the Democrats already pre-arguing, this is the view from Republicans, that not enough people have been searched out, that the questions haven't been thorough. I don't know how they would know that. But assuming it is deemed to be a process that provides at least cover for Republicans who are on the fence, even a couple of Democrats, how do you think it goes?
Well, I think it goes with the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh. But let's not kid ourselves. The vast majority of Democrats are going to vote no. They announced it weeks and months ago. Within hours of his nomination, Senator Spartacus, Booker Spartacus D. Thrace, called Brett Kavanaugh evil. Even Chris Coons, who was trying the last week to look like sort of a bipartisan, concerned about bipartisanship, we need to have an FBI investigation. He announced on Tuesday that if there were a Democrat Senate, they would confirm a Trump nominee, but not if they were from the Federalist Society, which is sort of neo-McCarthyism. You know, are you now or have you ever been a member of the Federalist Society? So let's not kid ourselves. The vast majority of Democrats are going to be opposed to this. The only 2 Democrats who are likely to vote for this are in heavily Republican states and could do themselves real damage. And interestingly enough, 2 candidates for the Senate, one in Tennessee and one Democratic candidate in Arizona, have refused to say where they are on this, realizing that this could discombobulate them in their states as well. But otherwise, the Democrats are bent on an 11th-hour character assassination, and nobody should kid themselves. They all said this could be done in a week. They all said stay out, the White House, stay out of this all. Now let's be prepared for them to say, well, we needed more time, and not only that, but we gave you a list of witnesses that you should have investigated and interviewed, and you didn't.
You know, it's interesting, we're tying between the Brett Kavanaugh stuff and now the latest allegations in the New York Times spelled out in exhaustive detail, also going back many, many decades, is that they want something to stick, obviously. But in the case of this New York Times report, I didn't find anything new or jarring there. We've always known that his father was a bigger player, not only in the real estate business, but in his son's climb than even his son has acknowledged. We always knew as well that if you're in the real estate business or you have a great deal of money, period, you're going to do all you can to, at least legally, avoid paying the IRS. Now, the question is, did it go to the extent of being illegal? There are no signs that that is the case here. But what do you make of both?
Well, it's clear they want to get at him, and the allegation that this is somehow shady is problematic from a public relations perspective. But I got to tell you, Neil, I'm not the tax expert, but it strikes me if you are a New York real estate developer, that's sort of like a class that guarantees an automatic audit by the IRS. I would suspect that Fred Trump's business dealings and machinations to transfer his wealth to his children were observed and audited a great many times.
And by the way, the IRS did write off on it. They had many battles with the IRS, and I can remember covering them, and I can remember covering several bankruptcies where these same issues came up. That is not to be an apologist here. It's just to point out that in that particular field, with those write-offs or lack thereof, I mean, you're going to run into some audits, you know.
Yeah, and look, I've always thought the issue of the tax returns had less to do with whatever machinations Donald Trump or his father were involved in, and more with the fact that Donald Trump has built an image in people's minds that he is this wealthy, and the tax returns might indicate that he's this wealthy. And we know that he went through for years and years and years with the Forbes listing of the wealthiest Americans.
Yeah.
He desperately tried to make certain that he was as high up that list as possible, going to the point of I believe it was, he impersonated a public relations executive on his own behalf, and in order to puff himself up. So, you know, the New York Times did an exhaustive study here, but I thought it was interesting. Nowhere in there does it say these are illegal. In fact, there's a couple of points where they sort of indicate or suggest that the IRS did routinely look at these and that there were squabbles about some.
And they did talk to some CBAs and the like and said this is a bit of a stretch, a bit of a problem, but no, you know, it's always in the eye of the beholder. But we'll see how it goes. All I've told my kids is that Fred Trump might have been very interested, Carl, in looking after and providing for his kids and making sure that the tax man didn't take all their money. I told my kids, your mother and I don't care. If it goes to the IRS and not you, that's the way it is.
You can't pull that off on me. You're just like Fred Trump, only they're about I think 9 zeros fewer in whatever you're going to convey to your children. $458 rather than $458 million. Yeah.
But there is the velvet Last Supper painting you're leaving out. But Carl, it's always good.
One of the children wants Elvis. One of the children wants that Elvis painting you got, and another one wants the dogs that are playing cards. So you got to work that out yourself, man.
Well, I already have, but I can't share that with a national audience. Carl, thank you, my friend, very, very much.